in the walkers. And let's confirm where we are around the grounds. New Zealand is officially in a lockdown. Darwin's in a lockdown. Melbourne's in a lockdown. Sydney's in a lockdown. Canberra's in a lockdown. So we've got a lot of people locked down. But John, it appears the buyers aren't locked down. It appears the buyers aren't locked down. They're keen as mustard. What are the McGrath agents saying at the moment?
Oh, just business as usual, Tommy, with the COVID safety filter over everything. But the buyers are there in droves, and they all want to buy, and they don't care whether the auction is virtual. They're still lining up. They're bidding strongly. And I think pretty much, as you know, we're fortunate to have offices up and down the East Coast, and it's pretty similar for everyone. I think you said Sydney's in lockdown, but I think the whole of New South Wales, is it still in lockdown?
New South Wales now, correct? New South Wales,
Yeah. But, I said to our team the other day, Tommy, I said, look, without being any disrespectful to those that are doing it tough, if this is as bad as it gets, we're the lucky country. We've got technology to boot. You can connect to, whether it's Foxtel, to each other, to clients, to Zoom like we're doing now. This is, I think you've got to be careful of the media hype. The media hype is kind of making, every time you turn on the 6 o'clock news, which I avoid doing, but these emotive, negative words, like I saw the other night, it said Armageddon, and I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty horrific. So we know that sex sells, and we know that bad news sells. So the media often goes out to make it really, really bad. So as mindful, and we've had, I think, 1,000 deaths, which is 1,000 by far 1,000 too many. But I think the UK might have had 150,000 deaths. That's far greater tragedy in terms of pure numbers. So just use the time, as I said to our team, use the time to redesign yourself, refresh yourself, call your clients. I've got all my agents calling their clients, and the number of times they're getting listings off it is phenomenal. Tim Cullen the other day listed 19 properties in the middle of lockdown. I was talking to Dave Cordius from our Geelong office, who's a co-principal with Jimmy Cross. He did 12 listings in the last 2 weeks during lockdown. And I said, Jimmy, what did you do? I did a webinar to our team. And he said, John, look, really, all you've got to do is believe it's the best time on the planet to sell, which I do, which he did. And he said, you've just got to ring your clients up, stay in touch, deal with their nervousness. And then as they say, I don't know, David, you just say, look, I've done 6 auctions in the last 2 weeks. They've all sold on average 20% above reserve. And just, deal with the facts and talk to the people. And at the end of the day, 12 listings in 2 weeks, and they're all auction campaigns, by the way. They're not off-market stuff. They're people that are prepared to put money down and go to market and invest in advertising. So I just think you've got to move on. The best agents, Tom, as you know, because you coach a lot of them, the best agents are just moving on without distraction, confidently, calmly, with empathy. This is not about being brutal and being a big, snake oil salesman. But you've got to move forward. You can't be sitting there waiting for this all to finish, because we don't know. This could be kind of in some way similar to the market for the next 6 months.
So, John, that is very, very, very well said. And this is not a plug for McGrath agents, but I can tell you the best performing agents around Australia and New Zealand now, John, totally understand that, hey, we've lost face-to-face in some areas, but you've gained phone and you've gained Zoom and you've gained time. John, there's a lot of people that you could not, as Murdoch used to say, never waste a crisis. And what's the opportunity in this crisis? The fact that you've got a captive audience of people that aren't in a CBD, aren't in an office sitting there in a meeting, you could never get onto them. And all of a sudden you've got people that have got more time that you can access. And John, I've been asking a lot of the agents that I've been working with, what are you currently doing at the moment? And particularly the Melbourne ones who can't show a property, John. Like, let's be clear, if anyone's complaining in Sydney, let's be very clear, you're still showing properties, you're still doing listing presentations. And John, I've taken some notes of what they've been telling me in the last 3 days they've been doing. I'm just going to get my notes.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so Johnny, this is what the clients have been telling me they're doing. They're working on their reviews on Google and realestate.com and Facebook, because they've been working on their reviews. They've said, here's an opportunity to reach out to our old clients and ask them whether they would be open-minded to share a review on what their experience was. So they're really doubling down on reviews. The next thing that they're doing, Johnny, is they're doing a lot of Zoom webinars to the market, which I find very interesting. So what they do is they invite their whole database to a Zoom webinar and say, hey, we've got on this Zoom webinar, we've got an accountant, we've got a town planner, we've got a data specialist, and we're going to go over what's actually happened in the suburb of Paddington in the last 3 months. We're going to give you a rundown. We're going to dig deep, right? And what's really exciting, John, is they're getting a lot of take-up of people because people are at home, they're getting a Zoom link, and then what's interesting is to actually participate, you've got to enter your name and your email. So all of a sudden, you're finding out who's fit in your database, who's actually interested in what's going on. So they're doing a lot of that. The other one, John, that I love is that there are clients that are doing live stream videos with past clients that have just sold, and they're asking the client to talk about what their experience was as a vendor putting their home on the market, what was the most stressful thing, what was the easiest thing, and what are the advices they give to other vendors about to put their property on the market. And people love those case study videos, John, you know, because you're getting a backstage view of things.
Yeah, I love that. The one that I especially love is those Zoom webinars. I mean, you imagine if you went out to every pipeline that your company or office has been talking to in the last 2 years about selling, and you put on, you know, here's the state of the market, here is some of the recent sales, and you did that, cost nothing. Everyone's looking for something to do at the moment. Have to be more.
John, I reckon the more I think about it, and I'd hate to get you a diary with 75 appointments, but I've got to tell you, you're the highest profile consumer person in real estate and have been for decades. I could just picture, you know, a couple of McGrath agents doing a thing of, you know, the Brisbane area. And we've also got John McGrath here. We've also got our local town planner here, right? You'd get, you know, incredible cut through. And I've got to tell you, it costs zero. It costs zero, John.
It's gold, Tommy. And you know, you're going to get listings because a lot of them are out there and they really want to sell, but they've assumed, because they haven't heard otherwise necessarily, this is not a great time. I mean, yeah, there are some headlines saying the market's good, but most people rationally would say, hang on, the country or the city's in lockdown. You can't do on-site auctions. You can't do group inspections. It can't be a good time to sell, can it? So really, really interesting. I was just going to mention Glenn Curran, one of our agents that you know on the North Shore. He had an auction that was going up tonight. It was due to go up tonight. Sold it for above 10 million this morning. Last night. He told me this morning. So sold 24 hours ahead of schedule and above $10 million. So it just goes to show, you know, you've got people spending 10, 12, $15 million through an auction process, albeit sold before. You've just got to get your head right. You have to get back into rhythm. If you're not, and most of your listeners are anyway, get into rhythm, get into routine, get the energy cranking, get your head right, brush out any cobwebs, and you have to get back on the horse because I tell you, there are plenty of agents having their record months right now. So for all our listeners and all your gym members, unequivocally, you have to be moving forward as we speak. Don't wait for anything.
John, I made the decision 3 days ago. I was falling into this trap of queuing up at 11 o'clock to hear the New South Wales press conference, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I would listen to it and I wouldn't feel any better afterwards. I'd feel actually worse. So today's Wednesday, so I've gone 3 days in a row. Somewhere along the day, you find out how many cases there is, right? So, and the truth is, whether there's 400 or there's 600 or there's 200 or there's 50 or 800, what you do won't impact you that much. Like that information doesn't change the trajectory of your day if you don't know that information. And I found that knowing that information, I'd get people calling me, oh, did you see the numbers, Tommy? What's going to happen? Do you see the numbers? So, John, I've decided I'm, you know, nothing against Gladys and the other two people and, you know, the copper, they're all doing the right job. The four of them give their own pitch there. I reckon, you know, hit the phones, hit your reviews, hit the Zoom webinars, clean that fat database and take it from fat to fit. do some live case study videos with past clients, get those profile pages, some of those profile pages that agents have got using their school photos, update those school photos, John, and look like you do today, and get the realestate.com profile pages cleaned up. I think it's also a great time, John, for our listeners to actually create clear position descriptions for their EBU. You know, when people say work on the business, like a lot of the times you don't have a chance because all you're doing is listing and selling and running campaigns. Now, all of a sudden, you can sit there and work out, is this person doing the right roles? Do they need a new position description, right? And the other thing is, I got a phone call, John, from an old acquaintance, and I got to tell you, I really enjoyed the opening sentence of the phone call. Haven't spoken to him for 7 years. He said, "Hey, Tom, it's Daryl here. Firstly, I want to apologize. I should have been in touch earlier." I thought to myself, what a great sentence to use to, you know, these people that you haven't spoke to, John, for ages and ages. What a great sentence. And then he went on to say I'm curious, how has 450 days of COVID-19 impacted your life, mate? And you get talking, right? Right. And I just think to myself, an agent could ring every person they've ever met before and they said, listen, sorry, I should have been in touch earlier. I'm just curious, how has COVID-19 impacted your real estate plans, right? Yeah. Doesn't have too much commission breath there.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. And I think you might have seen the other day, we got some great ideas from Steve Abbott at Jealous Craig about things they were doing with their team. And we molded a few for ourselves. And, you know, Tringali did that cooking class for our staff, which
was amazing. But I've got to say to you, John, I've got to tell you, I think sometimes those things are actually better than a positive webinar because they get people involved. There's a bit of fun in it. It's different. And, I ended up having a plate of that beautiful, spaghetti with prawns and chili. I got to tell you, Tringali, I know that you pick up the podcast sometimes on the video or sometimes you listen to it on $1 Million Agent, but I've got to tell you, mate, you're wasting your time in real estate. You need to have your own, Michael, you need to have your own restaurant, mate. You need to have your own restaurant.
Not yet. He's selling too many properties for us. Not yet. When he retires. Now I know you recently received it. Did you get it as a gift, the Seth Godin book, or did you go?
Yeah, it didn't come from Seth. It came from a client, John. This wonderful big book, and I've got to tell you, look, I really do love it, right? But John, I thought I'd read out because we both adore Seth Godin, right?
Yeah.
I want to read out a couple of quotes that I've been reading, and one particularly that I thought to myself, that's me. You know when it's a good quote, when you feel that page has been written by the author to you. You can really relate to it. It says this, John: modern procrastination. The lizard brain adores a deadline that slips, an item that doesn't ship, and most of all, busy work. They represent safety, because if you don't challenge the status quo, you can't be made fun of, you can't fail, you can't be laughed at. And so the resistant looks for ways to appear busy while not actually doing anything really important. Laziness in a white-collar job has nothing to do with avoiding physical labor. Instead, it has to do with avoiding difficult and apparently risky emotional labor. John, when you hear that sentence, that paragraph, what does that say to you? I mean,
first thing came to mind for me, Tom, as you were saying it, reminded me again, and I've quoted him every day since Eric, Ryan Holiday, and he talks about nothing has any meaning other than that which you attach to it. And so why do people procrastinate? As Seth was alluding to, they procrastinate to avoid pain or inconvenience or discomfort, not necessarily physical, but perhaps emotional, fear of rejection and failure. So again, it just comes back to it is, if you are positioning a rejection that is, no, I'm going to list with someone else, no, I don't want to use you, or whatever is what your perception of rejection. If you've just got to reframe that's actually a part of the path to get to success. And I remember Tom Hopkins years ago, we're talking about 35, 40 years ago, when I heard him say that, in those days, it was like every time you get a listing, it was $1,000. and you got to ring 100 people to get a listing. So everyone is worth $10. So every time someone rejected you, he said mentally, thanks for the $10, thanks for the $10. And just that little kind of approach. And then, it's sort of obviously a bit more sophisticated today when you hear people like Ryan Holiday speak about just don't attach inconvenience, pain, rejection, personal rejection to when someone says no. So yeah, procrastination comes from people fearing rejection 90% of the time is my experience. So just reframe what rejection means and just understand, as all the people that I'm coaching, I just say, if you can't get over that speed bump, you are never going to get on the success path, because it's all a part of it. What's another one?
Okay. Persistence isn't using the same tactics over and over. That's just annoying. Persistence is having the same goal over and over, right? And I love that. Because John, I'll never forget, there was a guy, I can say his name, I'm sure he's not going to mind, Will Pereira. He's actually got his own office now. He used to work at Rain and Horn when I first met him. And he then went on to work at Breshik, right? It's a good agent. I think he does, 100 plus deals a year, right? Very good agent. I remember John at the time, and Will, please, I didn't get permission to say this, but I'm sure you're not going to get embarrassed. John, he was one of these guys that was obsessed with, I've got to make the 100 calls. I've got to make the calls. But what would happen is he wasn't getting a lot of success rate. And the issue is that if you're doing the same thing over and over again, right, but it's actually the wrong thing to do, doing it 200 times doesn't mean you're going to get a better result. So he had a very cold, salesy baseline, and I can't remember word for word, but it essentially was just basically trying to say whether they want to sell their house, right? And I think that a lot of the times, just grinding it out. When you hear people say, just grind it out, just go harder, Look, yeah, don't get me wrong, persistence is important, but if you persist doing something that's annoying to people, it's not necessarily going to change the result. And as you say, John, what got you here won't get you there. A lot of the times you've got to look at the approach.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that was one of the things I wrote down. What got you here won't get you there is redesign yourself. And funny, we are in the middle of COVID, and what better time to do it? Redesign yourself, work out what is, and I use a metaphor, I think you've heard me use it, Tommy, of potholes. Imagine if you drove out your driveway in the morning, turned left, bang, hit a pothole, next morning did the same, and you did that for 27 years. Like, you'd be stupid, right? You've got to find, and yet we all go out there, and most of us go out there on a daily basis, and we keep doing things that are not serving us any longer. So yeah, redesign. It's funny, I remember a conversation very vividly with Michael Clark, who was with us years ago. He's now one of the top agents in Australia, Clark Hummel at Freshwater in near Manly. And his I think his mother we used to sell encyclopedias door to door. Tough job, right? Back in those days when encyclopedias were around. But, you had to door knock. No one really kind of wanted it. No one was waiting for encyclopedia salesmen to arrive. And so they were kind of trying to push you away. And then he did a bit of it. So he became extremely good at dialogue, very good at dialogue. And one of the masters I've seen over the years, and I used to coach him once a month. He'd come drive over to Edgecliff, we'd have a coffee and we'd talk through. And every month he'd say, what would you say here? And I said this last month, what do you think? And all this sort of, and he was a master. And one day I just said, no, Mike, I'm not going to critique your dialogue. It's as good as I've heard. Here's what I'm going to say. Shift your selling from here, your head, to here, your heart. So that was just like a shift from, and it just reminded me this because you're talking about Will Pereira's dialogue. And I just said, look, just be the person that gives a damn about the person on the other end. Yes, you in the back of your mind, you'll have a direction to take the conversation. Nothing wrong with that. But be that person that really gives a damn and shows that you're interested in the human being, not just the buyer or the seller in them. And anyway, he rang me a few weeks later. He said, I can't believe the advice. It's worked stunningly well. And I've got all these listings. And anyway, he's now one of the best agents in Australia. I think he does $4 or $5 million in fees. Just extraordinary.
Yeah, John, I clearly remember him saying that story, whether it was at ARIC or at one of the real estate gyms, where he talked about it. And I think he went on to say that, soon, if you can stop looking at that person as a vendor and look at them as a human that happens to be a vendor, I think everything changes.
Oh, totally everything. That's what Julie Masters said. If someone would just ring me after the open and not say, what did you think? Yes or no? Do you interested in buying it? How many bedrooms do you want? How many bathrooms? Just have a chat. How are you feeling about the process, Julie? What's working and what's not? What's the best home you've seen? Tell me more about what you loved about the place. Where are you moving from? Why are you moving? What's the most important thing for us to help you find in the next home? How do the kids feel about the move? How does your husband or your wife feel about the move? You guys excited? Are you anxious? Just talk to them like a human being, as though you're having a coffee, not a sales agent looking for their next commission. Just totally, as Michael Clark has absolutely found, and total credit to him. That's what changes the game.
Now, John, the last one. Letting your customers set your standards is a dangerous game, because the race to the bottom is pretty easy to win. Setting your own standards and living up to them is a better way to profit. Not to mention a better way to make your day worth all the effort you put into it. I like that. I like that. When you hear that, what comes in your mind, John?
Well, look, I've always believed, and one of my favourite slides is extreme standards are what sets a lot of people apart. And I think it was Tony Robbins, an early seminar I went again 30 odd years ago to him, and he said the fastest way to change your life is upgrade your standards or raise your standards. So, yeah, I do think in a world out there that's got a lot of negativity, a lot of mediocrity, a lot of pressure on you, it's very easy to just conform to every request you're ever given. And we find agents doing 1% commissions, and we find agents failing to do marketing, which is actually a disservice to their clients and, of course, to themselves and the results they could achieve. So I think, what's the old saying? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You have to know, what do you stand for? Are you an option agent? What is your fee scale? What is your approach? Do you believe in marketing? What is your playbook? I think you have to have a really clear sense of direction on who you are, like a true north, and how you do business, and a clear sales playbook. And you have to, Tommy, be prepared to walk away occasionally from someone that doesn't fit in it. Because if you try to accommodate everyone and everyone's request and everyone's desire for you to do it their way, you are going to end up in a really befuddled situation. So I think you've got to be prepared to walk away from business that doesn't fit certainly your value system and your standards.
John, I was talking to an agent that told me his approach to handling vendors that ask for a commission discount when they're at a listing presentation is a very simple line that says, the fee that's typed out on this agency agreement is the minimum fee that our company has as a rule that we take. And he says to me, you'll be surprised at how many people accept rules, right? They accept rules. They say, that's the rule. Sorry, we can't do this. As a rule, we don't do this, right? And when it's actually typed on an agency agreement and it looks, official, your audio is matching your video, you're sort of saying, as you can see. So he goes out with the agreement already, the fee typed on the agreement, right? And says, this is the fee. And I think it's interesting, because sometimes you think to yourself, yeah, but why that rule? But people do respect rules generally in life,
Yeah, and it is about standards, and you're right. And you can have a high standard and still have empathy. You don't have to sort of punch someone in the nose and say, no, we never do it like that, because you want to make sure people don't feel disrespected or disgruntled about it. But just have high standards. Just say, Tom, here's the way we do business. We find it works for our clients. We find it certainly delivers our clients the best results. That's what I'm all about. I'd love to sort of, take on your business, but some of the things you ask for, I don't believe are going to deliver you the best result. So I'd rather say no to that. And if you can get it done elsewhere. So just have an empathetic, positive way of letting someone down. And a lot of times people will say, and I've had this conversation thousands of times, they say, so you're saying that, we've really got to do that, we've got to do that. Well, if you want to get the best price, yes, and that's what I'm about. So I think standing for something really separates you from the pack. If you're the agent that every time they say, will you do it for 1.5? Okay, how about 1.25? Yeah, I will. Would you come down to 1%? It's a race to the bottom. It doesn't work.
Now, Johnny, before we finish off, I want to ask you, in the last 2 months, what's one exciting, positive thing that's come out of this for you in the new restricted ways that we've been working in Sydney, or let's call it, lockdown, semi-lockdown? What's one great thing that's come out of it for you?
Well, look, I think certainly what we're doing here and now, I think that Zoom calls have replaced a lot of face-to-face meetings, which people assumed you had to have, and yet being face-to-face is nice, probably better than the phone. But I think the ability to get people to use technology more so, just like we're doing now, has become really, really positive. I think a lot of people have had a good look at their life and their lifestyle, whatever that means for different people. And I think they've made some better decisions. I mean, I'm sure some have made worse decisions as well, by the way, but so many people that I've spoken to, and they've said, look, I've got onto a better diet, or I'm meditating every day, or I've been watching YouTube videos on leadership, and I've really picked up a better way to run my team. So I do think that use of technology and redesigning has been a big positive. What about you?
So John, on the first one, I actually, since March last year, as soon as this Zoom, I don't know, just the click of a button. I mean, the fact that you can, quickly put on a jacket, and you know what I mean. I just love and adore. And I personally have a view that there is not much difference in the emotional contagion between face-to-face and Zoom. Now, I do believe, I've been listening, by the way, this would be useful for Nicola, because I've been following someone that's very big in events. They do about 200-300 events a year. And they've come to the conclusion what will happen with events is small and medium events that were happening regularly won't happen. But when you have a big event, people are going to rock to it, because once or twice a year, they're going to want to have that emotional contagion with people, right? So big ones will get bigger, but these smaller ones that were sort of just happening and people would sort of roll in slowly, etc., there's no need for those. People are going to be using a Zoom. But for me, John, one of the benefits, without a doubt, has been I've never been a great sleeper, because I don't know what it was. I was flying a lot, and I always would have this dream as I'm lying in bed that I would miss the flight, right? Mm-hmm. And that thought in my head would not give me a great sleep, right? And if I didn't have a great sleep, I generally was, just didn't feel as good in the day. You get by. It wasn't like, but you just didn't have that zest that you'd have. So sleep, and I must have underestimated the importance of sleep in my life prior to that.
Too true. Too true. All right. Well, we've got to keep focused on what we're grateful for and the good things that are working. So thanks for another great session, Tommy.
All right, Johnny, speak to you next week. Signing off, everyone. Stay healthy, stay well. We saw what happened in England. The games at stadiums have got 80,000. They're full. We're only a couple of months away. See you.
See you, everyone. Bye. Bye.